It was an interesting day here at PPG Paints Arena. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. The Penguins had three very different periods on Thursday night as they beat the San Jose Sharks 6-3. The Penguins were awful, putrid, almost to the point of saying enough, just call it. Second period, they were absolutely irrelevant in their own game as they passed around the perimeter. If the idea of hockey was to look pretty and just keep passing the puck, staying to the outside and not actually affecting the outcome, the Penguins would have been world champions in the second period. The third period, with everything on the line, the Penguins actually played winning hockey. And it wasn't too late as they faced the very hapless San Jose Sharks. And in the third period, the Penguins absolutely dominated and pulled away for that 6-3 win. I don't quite know what is important and what is not important in Thursday night's game. Like, what should we unpack? Because if we want to go to the first period, let's take a look at the Penguins' situation. They're 7 points out of a playoff spot. They start the game against a terrible team and decide they're going to prove they're even worse. There's no two ways about it. The Penguins were pathetic in the first period. They were dominated by a terrible team. If any better team had played the Penguins on Thursday, they'd probably run them out of the barn. That speaks to the Penguins really still struggling to find their motivation, to find their heart, since it was ripped out of their chest a couple of weeks ago, March 2nd, against the Calgary Flames, when they blew a three-goal third, or they allowed 3 goals in the third period. But the Penguins reversed course, got to where they needed to get to, and get this, they are 5 points out of a playoff spot. Now, you might say that's ridiculous. 5 points is impossible with all of, let's see, this was game, I have no idea. Oh, it was Penguins game 65. So they've got 16 to go. They trail the Islanders now by 5 points because the Islanders have been shut out twice in a row, including by the Buffalo Sabres on Thursday night. Here's the funny thing. Guess who the final game of the regular season is against? Yep, the New York Islanders. So the reality is, let's chop that down to 3 points. Let's just assume that if the final game is for all the marbles, the Penguins are really only 3 points out. Isn't that insane? It's absolutely insane. Now, let's get to the bigger issues, because there was quite a bit on Thursday night. How does a team that professes to believe they can do it, how does a team that lip service, we can do this, we can get back in the playoff race, how do they flatline as they did in the first period? Even Sidney Crosby's line was just disjointed. They were responsible for the Sharks' first goal. The Crosby line, Crosby, I don't think, had the proper defensive coverage. Brian Rust circled the wrong way. He didn't have the proper coverage. Erik Karlsson near the net was actually somehow on the wrong side of his man. He was closer to the corner than the front of the net, while his man, and that would have been Fabian Zetterlund, was like, thank you, had the easiest rebound putback he's ever going to have in his career. The Penguins' top line has been what has sustained them and carried them all season. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that Sidney Crosby is still fighting through all of the emotions and maybe feeling like his organization gave up on him a little bit. He hasn't said that. Don't take that as a report. That's my gut feeling. Watching him in the last handful of games, he's just carrying an extra 10-pound weight on his shoulders. Now, the NHL schedule makers have done the Penguins no favors as well. What is it, 16 games in 30 days in March? They decided to make up for the no games in February by dumping them all in March. And I had someone close to the players tell me, yeah, they're in the grind. The Penguins actually do have 2 days now between games. They don't play the Rangers until Sunday. And how important is that game? If the Penguins can somehow figure out a way to win it, and let's just say, hypothetically speaking, the Islanders lose 3 straight, there they are. Maybe they don't deserve to be there. Maybe they shouldn't be there. But that is just how soft the underbelly of the Eastern Conference is this year. They could be there. And the reality is, if you look at the big picture, we jump into Kyle Dubas's chair for just a moment. The Penguins have to give San Jose a draft pick in one of the next 2 years, a first-round draft pick in one of the next 2 years. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Penguins can get into the playoffs. Well, that makes it a no-brainer to give up this year's pick, and then you don't have to worry if everything goes to hell next year. And I'm sure Dubas is, when he hits his knees at night to say a little thank you to the big man upstairs, he's like, just let us make the playoffs. Let's get it close. To that end, let's talk about the Penguins line shuffles in the third period, because that also deserves to be unpacked just a little bit. It took only a couple of games, or maybe 5 periods, for Mike Sullivan to realize maybe Michael Bunting on the line with Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust wasn't a great idea. Bunting's defense is, I'm a little surprised, actually. His defense can be, shall we say, wandering. And offensively, so much of his game is so similar to Brian Rust. So you really had almost identical bookends besides Sidney Crosby, and not enough complement with Crosby. In the third period, Sullivan puts Drew O'Connor there. And O'Connor, Kyle Dubas said it Wednesday night, that O'Connor doesn't yet know how strong he can be. And when I told Drew that on Thursday, Drew's like, wait, is that a compliment? It is what it is, I suppose. I suppose it's the GM raising the bar on O'Connor, who has really been one of the Penguins' best forwards, if not the best forward, over the last couple of games since returning from a concussion. The hop in his step, his skating, he's always been a good skater, but he seems to have found just a little extra. Getting to loose pucks, getting through the neutral zone, getting in on the forecheck. He's really playing, I think, a bigger game. He had 2 assists. I think he's a much better complement on Sidney Crosby's line than Bunting. Bunting goes down to Evgeny Malkin's line on that left wing. I think that's probably it could be a good combination. Of course, it is fraught with peril, as Bunting's defense times Malkin's defense times Valtteri Pustinen's defense. That could be trouble late in the game. Maybe that line shouldn't see the ice in the final 10 minutes with a lead. Riley Smith drops down to the third line with Lars Eller and Rickard Rakell. I like Riley Smith with Lars Eller. They just seem to have a little telepathy. For whatever reason, Riley Smith seems to be more impactful and noticeable with Lars Eller. That's been something I've noticed for quite some time. But for whatever reason, the Penguins coaches seem to default to what they want to be true. For example, Ryan Graves back on the second pairing. For example, Riley Smith defaulting to Evgeny Malkin's line. And there's a few lineup decisions like that. I thought the Penguins' defense on Thursday was pretty bad, actually. I have made a point not to pile on Ryan Graves because, some of the stuff I see on social media, it's not quite to Jack Johnson level, but it's getting there. And it's going to get there if Graves doesn't improve. The funny thing is, I think a lot of times Graves is as bad or is having as bad of games as Penguins fans accused Johnson of having. Because at least if you looked at the stats, when Jack Johnson played for the Penguins and was on the ice, the goalies had like a .935 save percentage. Ryan Graves is giving up great chances near the net. If you're going to be a defenseman, that's the one thing you cannot do, unless you're going to score 100 points like Erik Karlsson. You have to take care of the house. And Graves continues to struggle to take care of the house. And he got turned inside out and then flopped to the ice on a 2-on-2 in the first period. It almost broke the game open for the Sharks. Tristan Jarry, another thing to unpack, was very good on Thursday. Jarry has been the Penguins' best player over the last handful of games, hands down, bar none, no question. You can relax. Jarry is playing, is standing on his head, quite frankly. So I think that's everything that I wanted to unpack. It doesn't really make any sense to try to unpack the power play anymore, does it? As I noted in the PHN report card and the grades, at this point, the Penguins' power play kind of smells like the dead fish you hit under a friend's driver's seat on a hot summer day. It's an old hockey prank. Stuff the dead fish under the driver's seat in about 2 or 3 days. His car is uninhabitable. I'm not advocating doing that. I'm just saying it's a thing in hockey where it's been done several times. In fact, in Johnstown, I left my car in the employee parking lot because I worked for them, for the Johnstown Chiefs, in one of the final years of their existence. I was the play-by-play guy, and they took all the bumper stickers and window clings they had in an old box and just papered over my car. I get off the road at 4 a.m. We get back from, probably Trenton or Reading or somewhere, and I'm like, I just want to go home. And I get to my car, and it's just... So I slept on the GM's couch that night, as I actually did a few times. You shower in the locker room before the boys get in. Oh, the next morning I had some fun because they didn't know I was still in the building. And I might have gone to the all-night Walmart and bought boxes and bags of the styrofoam peanuts. I got even. We had some fun. Anyway, that's that. The Penguins win 6-3. They are 5 points out. And in the words of one of my favorite Monty Python scenes, but I'm not dead yet. That's it from PPG Paints Arena. The Penguins, I assume they practice on Friday. Honestly, I am so worn down from this season and all the travel that I am day to day. So I'll look in the morning when practice is and if there is practice, and I will be there. And we'll cover that as faithfully as we always do. At 5 a.m., of course, Dave will have his Penguins six-pack, followed by Dan's Daily and everything else we're going to stuff into the Friday coverage. There's a bit more of Kyle Dubas's radio show on Wednesday night that I want to get to on Friday, including his pump-up and praise of Jack St. Ivany. Now, I told you about him when I went up to scout Sam Poulin on January 25th, and I came away just raving about St. Ivany. I think Dubas had a similar moment recently because he was really pumping St. Ivan's tires as well, and even cited that as one of the reasons he traded Chad Ruedel, just to make space so they can get Ivany up either at the end of this season or next. All right, now I'm done. I'm Dan Kingerski. Like, subscribe, and send your gold, frankincense, and myrrh from PPG. I'm Dan Kingerski. Blah, 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 blah.